So this is the Wahoo KICKR Bike Shift, and it's been in my workout room since September of last year, and I have been using it on and off. So that's almost 6 months or over 160 days of use. I want to do more long-term reviews. When I first reviewed the KICKR Bike Shift, I felt like I did not get a chance to use it that much, since during that same day, Wahoo also released a KICKR Move. So I was testing both at the same time and trying to review both during that same period. And speaking of that KICKR Move, stay tuned for my long-term review on that one as well. So hit that subscribe button. So first thing first, you will see that the KICKR Bike Shift shares many of the same features and functionalities as the more expensive premium KICKR bike, but it comes with a few noticeable changes. First, it ditches the climb functionality seen on the premium KICKR bike that physically adjusts the angle of the bike to simulate the gradients of the terrain. Another notable change is in the flywheel. With a completely different design, the KICKR Shift's flywheel is way quieter than the KICKR bike, but lacks that motorized and momentum that you get with the KICKR bike flywheel. I also have to point out it lacks wheels to move it around. Not a big deal if you plan on keeping it in one place, but if you had to move it around, hopefully you've been keeping up with your strength training, because this is a 79-pound bike that you will have to lift. Not that I have an issue lifting 79-pound things, but I would say these are the primary distinctions between the two models. And the KICKR Shift retails at $3,000, so that is a solid $1,000 off the price that you would pay for the original Wahoo KICKR bike. So it is a solid contender for those looking to get a Wahoo KICKR bike and stay within the Wahoo ecosystem and save a bit of money. And setting up the bike itself was very easy. All you need to do is fix the legs with the included screws. It will take you a minute or two to do that. Then pop in the seat post, attach the handlebar and this magnetic connector, and that's pretty much it. Seriously, it took me like not even 10 minutes to put it all together, and I think Wahoo did a solid job making the setup process for a full bike like this super easy and simple. Then just fire up the Wahoo app and it will walk you through everything else you need to do to get the bike set up and fully customized and ready for you to ride. The KICKR Bike Shift comes armed with what we call in this industry the bear claw crank arms, and these crank arms offer you up to 5 crank arm length options. You can adjust from 165mm all the way up to 175mm, and switching crank arm length is pretty simple and straightforward. All you need to do is screw your pedals and screw them back in at your preferred length. Simple as that. But let's get into that seat post situation here. Initially, I encountered an issue where the seat post just kept slipping, leaving behind a trail of scratches, and that was extremely frustrating. No matter how much I tightened that lever, it just wouldn't stay put. That was until I had an aha moment and realized that I can use a hex wrench on the other side of that lever and to give it an extra snug. And that completely solved the problem with the seat post. So if you have an issue with that, just use a hex wrench on the other side. And riding the KICKR Bike Shift, I've got to say, it's really amazing. Having a dedicated indoor smart bike like this with its quiet ride and all the tech features easily accessible is really nice. The virtual shifting on this KICKR bike is a standout feature. It can be customized to match the gear ratios of your outdoor bike, including the number of speeds and even the cassette tooth count, all within the Wahoo app. You can even create different bike profiles with different gear ratios or group sets, but honestly, after my initial setup, I really never touched it. But assuming you have different riders in your household using different gear ratios and want to replicate what's on their outdoor bike, they can do that and create different profiles. So the different profile feature might come in handy. As for the handlebar setup, you've got your steering buttons on the inside of the handlebar and can be used with Zwift, MyWash, or IndyVelo. You'll also find customizable top buttons that syncs with various apps. In Zwift, it is a quick way to trigger the power up, which I find it to be very handy, particularly when racing. The bike is very responsive in erg mode and sim mode. It measures up to 2200 watts and measures power within plus minus 1% accuracy, and it has been consistently accurate for me. It also automatically calibrates power, so there is no need to worry about running any calibration for accurate power measurement. It can also simulate 20% gradient, which is plenty for indoor riding. Now, comparing it to the premium KICKR bike, you'll notice the KICKR Bike Shift does not have the climb feature, which we talked about, which basically physically tilts the bike for climbs and descents. It's a cool feature, and I really enjoy using it when I'm using the KICKR bike, but do I miss it when I do not have it? Not really. It's one of those things that, yeah, it is nice to have and fun to use, but I never really think about it when I do not have it. One downside though is that lack of display for gear information or other metrics. There are plenty of ways where you can get that information, but the lack of gear display is probably the biggest drawback for me. Wahoo does transmit the gear data via Bluetooth to compatible apps. So for example, if you use IndyVelo, it will show you the gear ratio on the screen, which is pretty handy and awesome if you use IndyVelo. However, if you use Zwift, that information is not there. For some reason, Zwift hasn't integrated this feature yet, so you might find yourself guessing your gear. But if you have an Element Bike computer, you can pair your bike shift to the Element Bike computer and the gear information will be displayed right on the screen for you. And there are no USB ports to use for charging devices, but also the bike does not have a media display or a media type holder anywhere, so it's not that big of an issue. So the flywheel. This is where Wahoo changed things a bit. Instead of going with a traditional flywheel design seen on the original KICKR bike or even the traditional classic flywheels we see on the KICKR Direct Drive Trainer, they have opted for something completely different. They have introduced a lighter, more compact electromagnetic flywheel, and it is fully hidden and integrated into the bike's design and sealed off from the outside. And the bike shift is much quieter and it's almost silent.
So one of the changes Wahoo made to the KICKR Bike Shift is they made it quieter. How quiet? Let's try to listen to the flywheel sound. It is very quiet, not fully silent, but it is very quiet.
But unlike the premium KICKR bike model, the flywheel on the Shift isn't motorized. And this means there is no downhill simulation or that feeling of forward momentum that you get with a heavier flywheel. So in terms of the actual riding feel, there is a difference that you will feel. The Shift does not quite replicate that sense of inertia that you get with a premium KICKR bike. And as far as connectivity, this shifter cable here is what basically powers up the whole bike. It is magnetic and will snap in place. Once connected, it will fire up all the connectivity options this bike offers. ANT Plus connection, 3 Bluetooth channels, so you can connect to multiple apps simultaneously and eliminates all Bluetooth issues that you might encounter using just one Bluetooth channel. And Wi-Fi connectivity for a much more stable connection with apps that support Direct Connect. Also, firmware updates happen behind the scene overnight as long as you keep your bike plugged into power, so no need to worry about updating firmwares. There is also a Direct Connect port that you will find right below the power dongle if you prefer to use a hardwired connection, and this requires purchasing the Direct Connect dongle accessory from Wahoo. Now, the shifter cable is magnetic, and in my original review, I mentioned that it was easy to knock it off with a towel, and it happened to me on multiple rides. But since I became aware of it, I did not knock it off once, but just be careful if you are immersed in a hot and heavy race, because if you knock it off, your avatar will stop, and nobody wants that, particularly in a race. Okay, moving on to power accuracy. The power accuracy on this bike has been very solid, as well as erg mode responsiveness. Here's a very recent ride I did in erg mode, and you can see throughout the ride the data between the KICKR Bike Shift and I was using Garmin Rally pedals, they were just neck and neck. I can go into each one of these sections, and as you see, the two power meters were almost identical. So nothing really to complain about here from the power accuracy department. The bike has been extremely solid. And going into the max mean graph, you can see the two are almost identical. Cadence is interesting though. The KICKR shift seems to always be 1 to 2 RPM lower for some reason. That was the same when comparing it to other power meters. Not a big deal for me to be at 84 RPM versus 85 RPM, but something that I noticed. So I'll leave you with this. The KICKR Bike Shift is a perfectly good smart bike. It has proven to be a solid bike for the past 6 months that I've had it here, and despite some of its quirks, if you are between the KICKR Premium bike and the Shift, I would say the only standout feature that I immediately noticed is the premium flywheel on the KICKR bike. Other than that, both are very identical. The climb feature is a nice thing to have, but you won't notice if it's missing. So, if you're looking to add a really good dedicated bike to your indoor setup but do not need all the premium features and that immersive riding experience the premium KICKR bike offers, I would say the KICKR Bike Shift would do, and you can save yourself $1,000 that you can spend somewhere else. All right, if you've been using the KICKR Bike Shift, how has your experience been? Let us know in the comments. I'll drop links to where you can get the KICKR Bike Shift or the premium KICKR bike down below, and giving those links a click will not only get you a great gear, but also supports the channel without costing you a penny more. So what's to lose? With that, thanks for watching. Feel free to share this video, guys, with others in your life, and do not forget to tap that like button down below. And if you're still watching but have not subscribed yet, you know what to do. Thanks again, and I'll catch you in the next video.